Come with me, my pretties. We are going to see Thor 2, The Dark World.
Hello everyone, this is B Harper from Supremacy.com and welcome back to another What a Marvel review. Today, as I said, or rather growled, I am going to review Thor 2, The Dark World. The Dark World is a Phase 2 film, and therefore it takes place after the events of the Avengers, just like Iron Man 3. However, unlike Iron Man 3, Thor 2, The Dark World isn't as good as I would have thought. Now, that's not to say it is a bad movie, I just want to get that out of the way right now. It's got some really cool ideas, but overall, here's the thing, for some reason, I thought The Dark World was more ordinary compared to the first Thor film, and I can't quite put my finger on it, because this film actually takes a few really brave steps in some positive directions. One of them, of course, being the continued relationship between Thor and his adopted brother, Loki. In the past 2 films or so, Thor and Loki have been at loggerheads with each other. So after the events of the Avengers, Loki's been put into the doghouse. But Thor has nonetheless been trying to take care of him and looking after him. Thor doesn't give up on his family, even if they are adopted. So in this film, Thor and Loki aren't necessarily as antagonistic toward each other, because both of them face a very mutual threat, and also the fact that Thor basically muscles Loki in to help him. So even though Loki is clever, he's not dumb enough, I should say, to, go fisticuffs with Thor. It's just not going to happen. So Thor 2, The Dark World basically takes place in Asgard, and it also takes place on Earth. Now, something terrible happens, of course, and these creatures called the Dark Elves are released from their prison. And the Dark Elves are kind of a big deal in Asgard, as well as, with all of the Norse pantheon. So Thor has been tasked to find all of the Dark Elves and try to find a way to stop their menace. The Dark Elves are led by Malekith, played by Christopher Eccleston. This is perhaps one of the foul-ups that this film makes. Christopher Eccleston is a great actor. We know that. He's proved himself time and again to be a strong, reliable, and charismatic actor. So for him to play a role like this, to play the villain, it should have been a great experience for him. But it should have given him the ability to really put forth the more bombastic sort of attitude of an actor. If I were given the opportunity to play a villain like Malekith, I would just tear that shit apart, man. I would basically be like a raptor tearing apart a cow in Jurassic Park. It's the sort of role that you can sort of dig your fangs into and just rip into it, But for some reason, Eccleston feels very subdued as Malekith, and I don't quite understand why. This film takes place in a quasi-mythological setting, okay? So I feel there can be an allowance made for some of the characters in this movie and the way that they act. So to see Malekith somewhat a little less dynamic in this movie is kind of troubling, because if you were going to have 2 of the more successful characters from the first film team up, sort of overcome their differences towards each other, you need to have a worthwhile villain for them to take on. And Malekith does not live up to that. And that is unfortunate. Once again, if you're given a role like that, I think you're given, more free range to act big and, be more dastardly and that sort of thing. But I digress. The rest of the film isn't too bad, as I said. It's a very sort of a classic race against the clock story, because Jane Foster, played by Natalie Portman, is in danger again. So Thor has been tasked to protect her, and you actually start to see the relationship, blossom a little more compared to the first film. In the first movie, the kiss at the end felt rushed. I don't need to go into that. You've already heard my story. But actually, in this film, I'm happy it took the time to explore the relationship more. We get to see them talk further. We get to see how they come to understand each other's realms after their experiences that they've had. And the chemistry between Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman is adorable. I'll give it that. It was also really cool to see Lady Sif, played by Jamie Alexander, come back. Sif is one of Thor's childhood friends, and she also happens to be an Asgardian warrior goddess. And if you ask me, Sif is a badass. Now, I understand that Lady Sif has actually been on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the television series. I haven't seen it. I haven't actually watched all of it, silly me. But it's really cool to see another strong female character share the screen with somebody, you know, who's, for all intents and purposes, the love interest of Thor. And it would have been better if we had seen more sort of interactions between Thor and Sif. No, not Sif. And here's the thing, in the comic books, Thor and Sif have a shared romantic history. They were childhood friends, and their feelings of friendship burgeoned into love. And it would have been interesting to have seen some sort of interesting love triangle being formed. Now, I'm not sure whether or not it was the film's intention to gloss over that, because when you incorporate a love triangle into a film, it can come off as incredibly hammy, and it can be a little bit insulting. But nonetheless, it's still a very cool idea if you have strong characters. If you have strong character motivations, and if you have very charismatic actors, which this film does. I love Jamie Alexander. I think her performance as a Bionic Woman was amazing. I'd love to see more from her. I actually wouldn't mind seeing her as a candidate for Wonder Woman. I think that has the possibility of happening. I actually think she looks more like Wonder Woman than Gal Gadot, but that's a different video entirely. Back to the movie. Overall, I feel that Thor: The Dark World is more of a missed opportunity than anything else. In terms of, possible character interactions, the action in the film is fine. The battle scenes are great. They're very well choreographed, and you can tell what the hell is going on, and some really sort of inventive choreography and, set pieces. Once again, I'm very happy to see Idris Elba come back as Heimdall. In the first movie, he was more or less a glorified cameo. Heimdall is the one who guards the Bifrost Bridge, for all intents and purposes. I think that was his responsibility. And it was good for him to return, in a greater capacity in the movie. Loki, as per usual, was one of the stars of the show. Now, that could have worked to Thor 2: The Dark World's detriment as well, because after the Avengers, people were all about Loki, and for good reason. Tom Hiddleston as Loki is amazing, and, excuse me. I'm sorry, that was my ex-husband. For some reason he got tied to the train tracks, and apparently he saw me there tying the ropes. I don't know what he's talking about. Sorry guys. But anyway, I feel with Loki's inclusion, I should say, it kind of works for and against the film, because Loki becomes a huge part of Thor, Thor: The Dark World. His alliance, as tenuous as it is with Thor, is still incredibly entertaining, and even though Hiddleston and Chris Hemsworth are just amazing together, once again, I can't quite put my finger on as to why this film wasn't as beautiful and wonderful and cute and charming as the first movie. The first film is like a superhero screwball sort of comedy type of deal, right? So I guess I was somewhat expecting a little bit of that in the second film, but I digress. Yeah, this film really confuses me. I didn't want to hate it. I didn't want to go into this movie and say, I don't like this. That's not the case. Thor 2: The Dark World has quite a few good things going for it, and it really is a shame that a film isn't able to recognise these things, recognise and try to find a way to put them into the movie. And you know what, making a movie is not an easy thing to do. I completely understand that. But if you're going to make a sequel to a film, you've got to make sure that you commit to the material. You've got to ensure that you have some sort of grasp on the story you want to tell, and try to find a way to make it entertaining, comprehensive, and, consistent, with the characters, with what's going on, and everything like that. So I give Thor 2: The Dark World a 3 out of 5. I think I'm being a little more charitable than I should be, but look, that all comes down to the fact that all the actors in this movie are wonderful. I love watching them, and there are some really good ideas in this film that are touched on, but I don't know what the director Alan Taylor was thinking. I don't know what the writer Kevin Feige was thinking, but they could have done so much more. They really could have, and it's just a shame that they didn't deliver on that. So yeah, that was my review for Thor 2, The Dark World, and I'm sorry about my birds in the background. They just don't know when to shut up. They're just like, what can you do? But anyway, good news is I'm going to be reviewing Captain America, The Winter Soldier next time, and as we all know, that movie's pretty much one of the big dog's biscuits, and that's a good thing. See you later, guys, and thank you once again for listening. Bye-bye.